why you took time off of dating after your divorce, rightfully so. Why you did all of the right things after your divorce. Maybe you were in a marriage previously that was unhealthy. You ignored all of the red flags and the signs early on. You continued to hope that it would get better and got yourself deeper and deeper into that relationship, losing yourself. And after the divorce, you got into therapy, you focused more on your career, you focused on raising your kids. Maybe you took many, many years off of dating before you finally felt ready to venture back into that world. One of the very common patterns that we see in Break the Cycle are women who've taken a lot of time off of dating after a divorce. They've done all of the right things, and they still get into another toxic relationship, quite often worse than her ex-husband. So why does this happen? The first thing is that you may have done all of the right things. Operative word here is do. So if you were in an unhealthy relationship, you probably abandoned yourself, abandoned your needs, continue to do more, or numb yourself to the facts, the writing on the wall that the relationship was getting progressively worse. You may have, instead of doing more in the relationship, maybe you focused on doing more in your career, doing more in the household, doing more for your kids as kind of a way to insulate yourself emotionally from the unfulfillment of your relationship. And often, if you get out of that type of a relationship, you automatically want to fix the problems, right? You want to fix yourself. You don't want this to happen again. So you do the right things. You take up new hobbies. You focus on your career. But the key here is that your subconscious beliefs, which are 95% of what you get in life, your subconscious beliefs are beliefs and stories and childhood conditioning resulting from trauma, conditioning from past adult relationships that had relational trauma, all of this stuff that is below your waking awareness that causes you to get or not get the outcomes you want in your love life. So, number one reason why you wound up in another toxic relationship after your divorce is because you were focused on doing the right things, but you weren't really shifting your subconscious beliefs. So that's a big one. And your subconscious beliefs, and a lot of the women that we work with here are achievers. They are driven, but the belief that is behind that is not necessarily a healthy belief. It's a belief of I'm not good enough, and I have to prove myself in order to get win approval or win accolades or win somebody's love and attention. So it's quite likely that if you took a lot of time off and you got into another toxic relationship, that you weren't really healing the root cause behind your bigger relationship patterns. The other thing that I want to say here is that oftentimes, if we don't get the lesson the first time, and we think that we've done better, the universe and the people that you meet in your love life, God, if you will, are always going to give you the lessons that you need in order to continue healing and continue evolving. There is a common quote that I share with my clients by Pema Chodron, and she's a Buddhist monk. Fascinatingly enough, became a Buddhist monk after her marriage ended very abruptly, and she discovered, or her husband at the time announced, that he was no longer in love with her. And it completely tore her life apart. And she chose, operative word, to do something good with that turmoil and that traumatic incident. So she often says that it doesn't matter where you move, what job position you have. You can move across the country, you could cut your hair, you could do all of the right things. But if you haven't fully addressed what is going on deep in your psychology, you will continue to play out the same pattern over and over and over again. This leads me to the second reason, primary reason why you may have wound up in another unhealthy relationship after your divorce, even after doing all the right things, is that you have been in a sense or a state of emotional depletion. You don't quite feel fulfilled with your life. We work a lot with women who are very successful in their careers, but they're often also single moms. and they just feel drained. They don't feel really anything. They are constantly busy. They feel overwhelmed with the demands of a career. They feel overwhelmed with the demands of being a mother. They feel overwhelmed with the demands of even thinking about their future. And will I be able to attract a better partner? And sometimes they're dealing with or co-parenting with an ex who isn't that emotionally healthy either. And so they're constantly juggling multiple things in the air. And so inevitably that is going to lead someone to feeling slightly burnt out, if not fully burnt out, feeling emotionally depleted, feeling like something is missing in her life, feeling empty, feeling unfulfilled. And unfortunately, we see a lot of women who attempt to date from that place. They decide, okay, I'm going to get on some dating apps. And really, this is not at all the ideal emotional space that you need to be in if you are wanting ultimately to attract a healthy partner and have a healthy relationship. You obviously, as we all say, have to be healthy within yourself. So the second reason why you met somebody unhealthy, even after all of the right things, is you were essentially still living in a state of depletion. You might have been doing all of the right things, but going back to point number one, those things that you were doing were not deep enough, or were not trauma, were not addressing the root cause, the root issue, which is often unhealed relational trauma. And maybe you tried to cope with your loneliness or your feelings of feeling like a failure, believing that you were a failure after a failed marriage, by overcompensating through being a workaholic, achieving more, staying chronically busy, which leads to point number two, living in a state of emotional depletion and emotional exhaustion, borderline feeling burnt out, trying your best to juggle multiple plates in the air, but still feeling empty on the inside. And this goes to number three. Trait number three is that you are probably more comfortable if you found a toxic relationship. If you got into another toxic relationship after your divorce, you were likely more comfortable with chaos, or you associate turmoil, ups and downs, uncertainty, chaos, a lot of anxiety, not knowing what's going to happen next. Like a lot of times these traits accompany like a very high, passionate, extremely chemistry laden relationship. You associate those things with love, and you might even be confusing, especially if you're an achiever and have achieved success in your career. You might be confusing, not necessarily consciously, but maybe more on an unconscious level, fixing somebody or continuing to win in that relationship as like a positive thing, versus truly accepting an equal partner and being emotionally comfortable with somebody who is consistent, somebody who is available, somebody who is not going to give you a bunch of highs and lows. So what happens in these types of relationships is that you get biochemically addicted to that pattern. And if you have lived that pattern for years in a relationship, you are going to be on a nervous system and brain wiring level more comfortable with that dynamic than you are with peace, with feeling at ease in a relationship, with feeling safe. Unsafety, ironically, feels more safe than actually getting your needs met. So you have to, first of all, make the decision, are you truly happy living that way? A lot of times we work with women who, they've lived that life for so many years that sometimes they don't believe that there's another option possible, but they know that they can't keep living like that anymore. When you're living in depletion, when you maybe feel subconsciously like something's wrong with you, it's going to cause you to live a really limited life on many levels. You might be doing all of the right things. You might be working really hard in your career. You might be parenting really hard as a single mother. But if you don't feel truly happy, none of the things that you're doing are really working then, are they? So in order to break that pattern, you have to first arrive at the decision point that you've had enough. You've had enough of numbing yourself. You've had enough of feeling like what's wrong with me, and make the decision to invest in healing your relational trauma, which is ultimately the root issue. The other thing that I want to say here is that if you, find yourself, or maybe you took a lot of time off of dating and then you got on some dating apps, and then the first person you met had chemistry with, you went all in on, you might have a undiagnosed or unhealed attachment style that needs some work. Attachment styles we have three main ones: anxious, which is somebody who tends to cling or get into, like, they're in an instant relationship. They meet the first person they have some feelings for, and then like they ignore everybody else and they focus all on that person. They tend to go all in. And as soon as that person starts to pull back or gives any kind of indication that they may not be as interested, it triggers a lot of anxiety and then obviously unhealthy behavior. An avoidant person would be somebody who maybe they've been so burned before that they're just completely shut off from connecting emotionally. They want a great relationship, but the moment they start to get close to somebody, it triggers a subconscious fear. They may start picking somebody apart, the devaluing phase, like we talk about in an emotional abuse cycle, and distancing themselves, creating distancing behaviors that put a gap between you and the other person. We want to go for somebody, or we want to ultimately strive to be ourselves, somebody who is emotionally secure. If you got into another unhealthy relationship after your divorce, the chances are that you are likely insecure emotionally about your ability to have and sustain a healthy relationship. And that is the belief, that's the work that needs to be done on you in order for you to be the full version of yourself, for you to remain firmly anchored in what I call your big self, and not allowing your past trauma patterns or your inner child or your small self or small selves to be making choices for you, or for you to continue numbing yourself out from your feelings. So just to quickly recap, if you got into another toxic relationship after your divorce, even if you took a lot of time off, and even if you did all the right things and you did a lot of therapy and you did a lot of hobbies and you did a lot of focusing on your career, is number one, that you were focused on doing. There's nothing wrong with doing these things, but you were likely not shifting your subconscious beliefs. And if you have a pattern of unfulfilling romantic relationships, there's quite likely a belief driving you that means that's akin to, I'm not enough. I don't feel enough. Therefore, I have to work harder. I have to achieve more. I have to do more. I have to be more in order for people to like me. That will not equal a healthy relationship. That will usually equal point number two, living in a state of depletion, and feeling exhausted, feeling numb, feeling just kind of like you're just treading water, getting through the day. You're not really focused on the future. You're just kind of focused on, can I make it through the day without feeling anxious? And that's really no way to live. And like I said before, unfortunately, a lot of people look for love from that place because they falsely believe that finding somebody will help take that feeling away. And the opposite is true. If you try to date or try to meet somebody from that place, from a sense of depletion, even from a sense of desperation, a lot of people that we've talked with here go from a divorce right into another relationship, even though their marriage may have been over and they may have emotionally disconnected from their partner months or even years in advance of the divorce. They jump right into another relationship. And oftentimes their motivation for doing so is because they don't want to be alone. Even though they were in an unhealthy relationship, at least they had somebody. So if you're dating or feeling depleted emotionally, you're just not happy, you're just kind of like meh in your life, or you're on dating apps because you feel that your time is running out and you don't have very many options and you don't want to be alone forever, this is not the emotional state that's going to give you success in your love life. You have to change that. We'll talk about that in a second. And finally, living like this is very comfortable for people. There is a famous quote saying that most people are better sticking with the devil than they know, which is your dysfunctional patterns, versus going for the devil that they don't know, which is the unknown. And if you have, maybe it's been many years since you've had a healthy partner or had healthy experiences in dating, or maybe you've never had a healthy relationship and you've always felt like, something's wrong with me. I don't really feel worthy. And this has been a lifelong struggle. Going for what you really, really want before it's too late, before something happens to you, we're not guaranteed another day. It means being willing to go for it. And being willing to go for it means you have to get out of your comfort zone. There's no way around that. You have to do things differently if you want to change your behavior and have a different result. And along the path of changing your behavior consistently and receiving a different result, your fear is going to crop in. And a lot of times this is why people don't get the results that they want in their love lives, because they meet rejection, they meet disappointment, and they automatically make it mean something's wrong with me, this isn't worth it. They don't have the mindset in place because they haven't truly dealt with the trauma in their psychology, their patterns of living in fight or flight, their patterns of depletion, their patterns of something's wrong with me. They haven't fully addressed those things that are like 90% of the equation. So if you feel like you've done a lot of right things, you've talked a lot about your childhood, you've talked a lot about your ex, maybe you found yourself in an unhealthy work environment with a boss that triggers you in a similar way that your ex did. There's no surprises here. That's all related. The common denominator in all of that is you. And you are ready to stop feeling burnt out, stop feeling depleted. You are ready to embrace life, feel happy every day, date confidently, feel secure in your ability to date and be emotionally present and emotionally sound and emotionally even, and not let rejection scare you. And you want to attract a healthy partner and really go for the life that you really want, then I encourage you to book a free breakthrough call. Go to BethanyDotson.com/talk. We'll have a very honest conversation about your patterns. I was talking with somebody recently, a therapist, by the way, who was really good at working with people, and she was in therapy herself, but she could not see her own patterns even with a therapist. So we're going to help we're going to hold a mirror up on that call at the patterns that you're doing and you might not be aware that you're doing that are keeping you stuck. The big pattern. And if you don't have the result that you want, even if, and this does not make anybody's abuse towards you right, doesn't minimize the abuse that you've experienced in a relationship. But if you're over 40 and you don't have the results that you want in your love life or really in your life at large, there's only one person that's responsible for that, and that is you. So if you are ready to take full ownership over the rest of your life and your success in relationship and dating, then I encourage you again, book a free breakthrough call, BethanyDotson.com/talk. Few qualifications about who the call is for. So this call is for you if you're successful professionally, you have a solid, stable career, you're well established in your career, home life, lifestyle, all of that is great. The one thing that seems to be the recurring problem is your love life. Maybe you just exited another unfulfilling relationship after thinking that you did all of the right things. Maybe you've been out of a relationship for a few months or even a couple of years, and you're still finding yourself repeating the same patterns. Second qualification is that you are 100% done with your ex. Sometimes we have people book calls and they're still hoping to get back together with their ex. You can't be in that emotional space. You have to have already arrived at the decision that you are finally completely done. And then finally, you've already invested in things like talk therapy. You might even have a therapist right now, but you're not receiving the results you want. You realize you need a succinct plan. You might be missing that in therapy. You don't really have the accountability that you need, and you don't have any specific goals that you're working towards. Then I invite you to book a free breakthrough call. Have a beautiful rest of your Tuesday, almost at the end of the year, and I will see you all very soon. Take care.